Hi, welcome to video 4 of the Venture Capital Term Series, and we're talking about option pools, which creates a stealth dilution. I'll talk to you about what I mean. Your term sheet, it shows 20% investor ownership. It shows 20% option pool for employees. And that simple math says you keep 60% as founders, right? Well, no, not necessarily. You're wrong. The way the option pools are structured, you might actually keep only 48%. This is the hidden dilution that catches a lot of founders off guard. So let's talk about that in more detail. Option pools, they reserve shares for future employee equity grants. They seem straightforward, right? But they contain hidden dilution traps that can significantly reduce founder ownership. Why? There are key issues that you have to consider. You have to consider the size of the pool, the employee pool. You have to look at the timing of the creation, and you have to look at the refresh rights. If you get these wrong, you'll give away more in equity than you intended to in the beginning. So option pools are really, let's call it what it is. It dilutes the existing shareholders, and it creates equity for future employees, which is a good thing. But it dilutes the founders. And the timing trap has to be considered. Most investors require option pools to be created before their investment, not after, before their investment. I cannot stress this enough. Let me walk you through this example. So you have the pre-money valuation at $40 million. You have an investment of $10 million for 20% ownership. You have a required option pool at 20%, and the wrong calculation, what founders are expecting is 60, 20, 20, and they're keeping 60%. That's not correct. What is actually happening is that the option pools comes out of pre-money valuation, not post-money. So the total shares after you create that pool is 125%. You have 100%. Plus now you have created a 20% pool for the new grants to equities for employees and the 20% investors. So your founder ownership has gone down from 80 to 80 over 125 with 64% of pre-money, but 51.2% of post-money. The investor ownership doesn't change. It still is 20% as negotiated, and the option pool is still 20%. However, the founders actually get 51.2%, not 60%. So the math behind the dilution is a little bit complex, and I'll walk you through the math. You create this 20% option pool, right? So let's talk about shares. The original founders, they have 100 shares. The option pool, there are 25 shares that you're adding because it's 20% of new total. The founders now own 100 over 125 or 80%. Now the investors, they buy 20% of the post-money company. So investment creates 31.25 new shares or 25% of the existing 125. So now what happens is your total shares, the denominator has gone up to 156.25. So now your founders are 100 divided by 156.25, 64%. You add the option pool, that's another 16%. You add the investors, that's 20%. You are starting to get diluted very quickly. So the pool sizing strategy, investors often push for larger pools than necessary. And the way to right size this approach from a negotiation standpoint, hiring plan has to be established for the next 18 to 24 months. Estimate the equity grants for each role. Add some buffer for unexpected hires. And then size the pool accordingly. Just don't accept some arbitrary 20 to 30% option pools. Don't ever do that. If you need 10%, it's 10%. That's the way it is. Look at the pool refresh rights. These are investors that often negotiate rights to refresh option pools in future rounds. And you know what the standard language you often see is? Company will maintain option pool sufficient for employee grants through next funding round. Translation? Investors can force pool increases. They can create ongoing dilution. So be careful. Now, how do you negotiate against that or negotiate with that, not against it? You limit the refresh to specific hiring milestones. Again, look at the hiring plan. You require the board approval for pool increases, not just in investor, but the board approval. And you look at the cap total option. You basically cap the total option pool size across all rounds. Put a ceiling on that. So different pool types you have to look at. Let's say you look at the available pool. These are ungranted options ready for new hires. Then you have the total pool, which is all of the options granted plus available. Make sure that the terms sheet specifies which type and size. Now one of the things that you need to look at are acceleration provisions, by the way. What happens to unvested options when employees leave or the company is sold? You add that back. What is single trigger acceleration? Be careful about that. These are options that vest immediately upon sale, and that can become very expensive for the company. You can have double trigger acceleration, which is basically options vest only if the employee is terminated after sale, which actually is more balanced. So always try to have the double trigger in there, not the single trigger. And look at the pool management. Look at how the pool is being utilized monthly. Look at the project grants for planned hires. Look at whether you're running out of the option pool in mid-hiring cycle. Plan these pool refreshes very strategically. The common mistakes that one often makes is accepting pools that are larger than hiring plans and then not accounting for pool dilution in the ownership calculations. You are giving investors unlimited refresh rights, and that's not a good idea in the long run. And track the pool utilization. Poor tracking of pool utilization is going to cost you down the road. So the true cost of option pools are necessary for hiring, but they're expensive equity. Our 20% option pool might cost founders 8 to 10% of total company ownership, depending on the structure. Remember, we talked about the ownership going from 60% to 51.2%. That's exactly what I mean. Option pools are necessary for attracting talent, but they create real dilution for founders. The key is sizing them appropriately and controlling it, putting a barrier around it as to when and how they get refreshed. Always calculate your true ownership percentage after accounting for option pool dilution maybe. And by the way, don't let stealth dilution surprise you when you model future founding rounds. We will talk a little bit about drag along rights in the next video. But the option pool is a very important element. It gets thrown in and folks often go along with it, but give it a little bit more thought when you're looking at your agreement. It will really help you save from a dilution, but it'll be a much more fair on the employees and the investors in the long run. Thank you for your time. We're going to talk about drag along rights soon. Okay? Take care.